Imagine this: a man, struggling and broken, pleads for help in the middle of a crowd. People rush to his side, offering him food, shelter, and comforting words. He survives, yet in his survival, he never learns to stand on his own. The cycle repeats. Now, contrast this with a lone warrior, abandoned and left to his fate. Through suffering, he rises. Through hardship, he finds strength. In the grand play of nature, who truly thrives? Welcome to a perspective few dare to entertain. Friedrich Nietzsche, the firebrand philosopher, warned us about the hidden cost of compassion, how it weakens societies, rewards mediocrity, and suppresses greatness. This message is not for the faint-hearted. It's a call to those who want to break free from the shackles of blind kindness and see the world for what it truly is. Stay with me to the end, and if you find your worldview shifting, consider subscribing. Now, let's get into it. Since the dawn of civilization, humans have grappled with morality. It shapes our laws, our cultures, even our sense of self. But not all moralities are created equal. Nietzsche drew a stark line between two competing forces: master morality, which exalts strength, ambition, and self-determination, and slave morality, which revolves around humility, compassion, and pity. The former is the mindset of conquerors, innovators, and those who carve their own path. The latter, however, is the morality of the masses, the morality that soothes rather than challenges, that comforts rather than propels. And, somewhere along the way, it won. Today, we live in a world where weakness is not just tolerated but celebrated. People are encouraged to embrace their fragility, to find validation in their struggles rather than their triumphs. The language of resilience has been replaced by the language of grievance. Instead of asking, "How can I overcome this?" the modern mindset asks, "Who can I blame for this?" Victimhood has become currency, and in a society that rewards victimhood, people will find ways to be victims. This isn't to say suffering isn't real, it is. But suffering turned into an identity strips people of the will to rise above it. Compassion, once a noble and necessary trait, has metastasized into something crippling. Instead of being an act of grace, it has become an expectation. Institutions, governments, and even social movements now revolve around the idea that people must be coddled, protected from offense, shielded from hardship. The irony is that excessive compassion doesn't create a kinder world, it creates a weaker one. People become dependent, afraid to take risks, afraid to fail. And a society that fears failure is a society that fears greatness. History tells a different story. The civilizations that advanced, the thinkers who revolutionized human understanding, the leaders who reshaped the world, they did not do so by embracing fragility. They did not wait for the world to soften its edges for them. They sharpened themselves against the harshness of life. Strength, both mental and physical, has always been the driving force of progress. And yet, in our current era, strength is viewed with suspicion, even hostility. Words like toxic masculinity or privilege are used to shame those who exhibit too much willpower, as if ambition itself is oppressive. The result? Stagnation. A world too afraid to offend is a world too afraid to think. A society that prioritizes safety over strength will eventually collapse under its own weight. The antidote is not cruelty, nor is it a complete rejection of empathy. The antidote is balance. Compassion should inspire people to rise, not to remain where they are. Strength should be celebrated, not shamed. And most importantly, hardship should not be erased, it should be overcome. Because at the end of the day, history does not remember those who begged for mercy. It remembers those who seized destiny with their own hands. Let's take a brutal, real-world example: the fall of the Roman Empire. Rome, once a powerhouse of strength and discipline, fell when it became too soft. Its people grew addicted to luxury, comfort, and excess. Instead of warriors, they became dependents. They fed the poor, forgave their enemies, and celebrated weakness over dominance. Meanwhile, the Visigoths and Vandals, hardened by struggle, took advantage of Rome's decay. When Rome fell, it wasn't just a city that collapsed, it was a civilization crushed under the weight of its own kindness. What does this tell us? That history does not reward compassion. It rewards those who evolve beyond it. From childhood, we're told that being nice is the key to acceptance. Help others, be agreeable, always put others first. This is the script we're handed. But step into the real world, and you'll see a different story. The ones who are endlessly kind, who never say no, who make themselves available at all times, these people don't command respect. They get used. They're the ones who pick up extra shifts without a raise, the ones who listen to everyone's problems but have no one to call when they need help. They're appreciated, sure, but in the way a doormat is appreciated, only when needed. Contrast that with those who set boundaries, who know their worth, who are willing to walk away. These are the people who get ahead, the ones who get promotions, admiration, and influence. Why? Because respect isn't given to those who beg for it with niceness, it's earned by those who demand it with self-respect. The harsh reality is that kindness without strength isn't virtue, it's weakness. And weakness, no matter how well-intentioned, invites exploitation. This doesn't mean kindness is worthless, it means it has to be paired with power. A lion can afford to be gentle because it has the strength to be dangerous if needed. A lamb, however, has no choice but to be kind, and that's exactly why it gets eaten. The world isn't cruel for this, it's simply how things work. If you make yourself disposable, people will dispose of you. If you make yourself indispensable, they will value you. The difference lies in your ability to say no, to stand firm, to choose when and how you give. So stop trying to be nice in the hopes that the world will reward you for it. Instead, be worthy. Be strong, and let your kindness be a choice, not an obligation. Help when you want to, not when you feel forced. And most importantly, never trade your self-respect for someone else's approval. Because in the end, it's not the nicest people who win. It's the ones who know when to be kind, and when to be ruthless. Compassion, like any tool, is only as useful as the hands that wield it. A warrior in a garden has the strength to protect what he cultivates. He can afford to be kind because he has the power to defend himself. But a farmer thrown into war, he is helpless. His kindness, once a virtue, becomes a liability. This is the problem with unchecked compassion. It assumes the world will always be gentle in return. It teaches people to be soft without ever preparing them for the reality that, sometimes, life demands steel, not sympathy. Modern society overvalues compassion to the point of weakness. People are told to be endlessly understanding, to never offend, to prioritize feelings over truth. But in a world that is not always kind, this is a recipe for disaster. Those who cannot stand up for themselves, who rely solely on kindness to navigate life, become easy prey. Just as a farmer in a war zone is defenseless against soldiers, a person who knows only compassion is powerless in the face of manipulation, cruelty, or hardship. Strength must come first. Compassion should be a choice, not a default. The healthiest individuals, the ones who truly thrive, are those who embody both sides of the coin. They are warriors who choose to live in peace but are prepared for battle if necessary. Compassion has its place, but without strength, it is nothing more than an invitation to be trampled. The lesson is simple: be capable before you are kind. Because when the world stops being gentle, only those who can fight will survive. Nietzsche understood that power was not about domination for its own sake but about the ability to shape one's destiny. He saw suffering not as a curse but as the crucible in which strength is forged. A life without struggle breeds mediocrity, and a society that prioritizes comfort over challenge produces individuals who are fragile, easily broken by adversity. False compassion, compassion that demands perpetual sacrifice from the strong while enabling weakness in others, creates a culture where people are discouraged from overcoming hardship and instead rewarded for their victimhood. True greatness is not found in endless accommodation but in the ability to rise above suffering and push others to do the same. This does not mean kindness has no place. It means kindness should be a gift, not a demand. When compassion becomes an expectation, it ceases to be virtuous and instead becomes a form of control, used by the weak to manipulate the strong into surrendering their power. A society that shames strength and glorifies fragility is a society that will inevitably decline. The solution is balance: help others, but not at the cost of your own strength. Be compassionate, but never at the expense of truth. Because in the end, a world that prioritizes power with wisdom will always surpass one that sacrifices greatness for the illusion of kindness. This is not a call to be heartless, it is a call to be selective. Be compassionate, but never at the cost of your own strength. Recognize that some people will drain you, that some causes are not worth your time. Choose who deserves your kindness. Because in the end, history does not remember the nicest, it remembers the strongest. If this perspective made you think, consider subscribing. There's more truth to uncover. This is the Beyond the Surface channel. Like the video, share it with a friend and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching.